when I first got elected in 2010, it's a funny story because I got elected to the New York State Assembly. And my first official act as an elected official was to write a letter to Commissioner Don Garber. And I said to the commissioner, I said, look, I have a perfect location where I think a soccer stadium can be built. And I knew that the expansion lottery was happening in 2013. And I said, New York doesn't have its own team because the Red Bulls are New Jersey. Right. And 30 years, they still can't lift the cup. But I'm just saying. Like,
the roast is over, but
I'm just saying, like, so I don't hear from the guy, like, at all. Like 6 months later, Megan, my chief of staff, she says, hey, you got an invitation to come and have lunch with Commissioner Don Garber. I'm like, whoa.
Okay.
Yeah. So we go to Midtown to his headquarters and he apologized. He's like, look, I'm really sorry it took so long. He's like, we had no idea who you were. Because at the time, it was literally, I just got in. So my name wasn't even on my letterhead. If you went to the website, it was just my picture. And like the district, like nothing on it.
Just a MySpace profile.
Exactly.
Like, yo, Don, you're my top 8.
Why? Bro, I put you on my close friends list on Instagram.
And nothing, right? And 6 months later, right? Yes. Jeez. So, we got in there and like the Jets wanted to come at one point to Queens. Bloomberg at the time was thinking of building the Olympic Village in Flushing Meadows, Corona Park.
Right. Oh my God.
And so I knew that location right there was just primed to have like a soccer stadium there. And then you fast forward to 2013, NYCFC gets announced, great, very excited, all those things. And then, I always say this, I'm like, then they left me because they were going to do something there. And then they went to the Bronx.
That's right.
And, I was like, okay, I'm building this stadium with you guys or without you guys. One way or the other, we're getting it done. And a dear friend of mine, the former Bronx Borough president, Ruben Diaz Jr., makes a bet with me. He's like, I got you. It's like he's all baseball and all that. And he's like, I'm going to get your soccer stadium here. I got your soccer team in my borough. I'm like, you watch. And so we made a bet. It was a plate of empanadas. And I will say he did cough it up. Nice. So he did come through. And then, after that, I just kept going and going and going. And then I really, put some things together that was not just going to be a soccer stadium. I said, look, we have an ability to do something really special here. Something that hasn't been done in New York or across the country, where we can build an entire new neighborhood here. That surrounds the soccer stadium, right?
Because for people who don't know, like we're talking about like the Willits Point area. I once bought a Volkswagen Golf in Willits Point. And I quickly found out that there was a lot of damage covered up by paint, which is probably the most Willits Point.
Or the VIN number.
Or the VIN number. Just said the engine didn't belong to the car originally. But whatever, it lasted. It went well for the time it lasted. It was a very cheap buy. But Willits Point was like it was like very like minimally industrial. And it's one of those things of like, every once in a while, you watch an old New York film, and like a white van will pull over, and you're like, "Bro, none of that exists. It's all glass and steel." This is one of the few areas where that still existed, where you could see redevelopment was able, especially with the extreme need in the city for housing.
Yeah. Oh, to me, it was like the perfect location, right? Because what I wanted to do was not make the same mistakes that others made when they brought in sports franchises. Look at Barclays, right? Atlantic Yards. 12 years, 13 years later, they still haven't done anything to build the housing or the community benefits that's there. Right. So I knew that what I needed to do was make sure that I can get the right partners to come in here and do a couple of things that was going to help this be something really different, really historic. When the Bronx was falling apart and I had another team coming in, and that'll be for another podcast.
Okay.
Just so you know.
All right.
We were ready to go, and, the mayor and everything, we just had everything
But this is
going.
good. I mean, this is leverage. I mean, you're doing
I was just going anyway, right? Like, as much as I love mine. As much as I love NYCFC, I was going to go. Like, this is like, for me, it's my neighborhood. It's where I grew up
Of course.
Legacy project. Been working on this for 12 years, and I got the call. They're like, can we meet? They came to Corona. Marty Edelman.
You're just eating a plate of empanadas, like ready to go.
It was like, it was like we had breakfast, shook hands, and that's where the ball started to get rolling. And it's when you have the right partners that you can make something this special at this level really happen, right? So when you tell them, I want you to build it with private funds so that the city doesn't have to pay for it, right? Because every single sports franchise that comes in here is with taxpayer dollars, right? They're like, no problem. I said, this city was built on the backs of union workers. I want the stadium to be built 100% union. They're like, no problem. And then that gave me the leverage to go back to the city and say, we need to build a housing here that's 100% affordable housing. So that gave me the opportunity to bring 2,500 units of affordable housing, a brand new school. It's hit the wrong button on that one. I love it. No. More air horn. So, that started to come alive. I wanted to demonstrate that to everyone that always says, when you bring these sports franchises, they never really commit. That's why if you go to Willets Point right now, you're going to see the housing that's going to be finished, I think, in the spring, like in a month or two. And then we're going to start the lottery for people to come in for the first phase of this, the first 1,100 units. We broke ground in December for the soccer stadium itself and the other portion of housing in the school that's going to be built there. So it was a long journey. And I always say, like, I'm going to write the book that no one will read. Yeah. Because the behind the scenes to get this done, especially in a city like New York, of course, it's so challenging to do anything. Bringing all these complex players to agree to everything is pretty difficult, but getting it done is the most gratifying thing.
That's got it. And I want to get to the point when it was finally completed and the project was going to move forward. But out of curiosity, was there a point where you were like, holy shit, I don't think this is going to happen?
Or how many times did that happen?
Look, Megan, my chief of staff, she acted like my therapist because we'd be on the phone, like trying to figure things out. Look, I never stopped believing that I was going to bring a soccer stadium to Queens. There was just no doubt in my mind. I knew that I had the right ingredients to make this work. The difficulty sometimes is different administrations, bureaucracy, that you have to get personalities, egos, all of that. How do you sit at a table with that level? I'm a kid from freaking Corona, Queens, sitting down with, billionaires here saying, no, you got to do this, right? When they're accustomed to hearing yes all the time. Mm-hmm. But it was great because they understood. They understood the significance of this project. They understood what it meant to that neighborhood and what it means to New York City in its history. First time in 4 decades that New York City is getting a brand new neighborhood. And it's crazy. Happening in the area that I grew up in. Well, born and raised there. And to have that legacy there, to me, that's it. I can walk away from all of this and say, look, I've done something really great. I bought the house I grew up in. I'm not moving. Yeah. So to me, that's going to be a great thing for generations to come.
That's beautiful.
So cool. Every once in a while we travel as comedians. I'll go to some place that has like a lot of open space, and I'm like, you guys should put a couple buildings up in here. Yeah. You actually did that in your own in your own neighborhood. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it was. Look, it's so gratifying to see that because there was so many stops and starts to this. You're talking about, if you look at the history of Willets Point, everybody knows it's written in The Great Gatsby and, the Valley of Ashes. But it was 3 administrations that couldn't get this done. Yeah. And they were going to build a mall, right? And I'm like, retail is not going to cut it here, right? Yeah. Like, you're going to have 14,000 union jobs. You're going to have 1,500 permanent jobs there. It's not just 2,500 units of affordable housing. It's 2,500 families that are going to have a roof over their head. It's 14,000 workers that are going to be able to pay the rent, put food on the table, and really make the economic engine of that neighborhood really thrive in the next 10 to 30 years.
Yeah. So, one of the coolest things, I was watching. I remember watching the live video when the stadium was announced and everybody's there. But then the video when I don't know what it was. It was like I don't know if it was like a legislature or like when everybody's basically, when you're announcing and everybody is like, hey, I just want to give credit to Councilman Moya. He's worked hard at this and it's just like, it's like 7 people over and over. They keep going like, I just want to give credit to Councilman Moya. And I'm like, from the first two, I'm like, man, this is clearly a project that he's been working on for such a long time, and everybody wants to give him his flowers. But by the 8th one, I was like, why are we glazing this man?
Damn, dog.
Relentless. Like, I get it.
1 through 7 said it already.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, all right, a little handshake, a round of applause. But that moment must have felt really good to not just get it completed, but then just to have your peers being like, because I'm sure those people in the room, I'm sure a lot of them were supportive at first, and you had to convince a lot of people. So it must have felt really good, just on a personal level and a professional level, to just be like, "Hey, I got it done, and we're finally moving forward." And everybody is kind of just finally the world is seeing it and giving you that acknowledgement.
Look, I've been in politics, practically my entire life, and I've won races, I've lost races, and I've never cried. I've cried at Barcelona games. I'll cry at soccer games. I won't cry at like anything. But
we're broken dudes too.
Seriously, right? Like, but I got choked up, just reading the speech, because it's like you go back. I'm going back to 2010 while I'm reading the speech, in April of 2024, right? And all of a sudden you're like, wow, this is really happening. And I just could hear my voice, when you start like, it's like, it's not coming out. I'm like, oh man, I got to take a deep breath, and, I mentioned my dad, my family, because they were all part of this. I lost my dad like right before that. So, it was like kind of like this big triumphant moment, right? It's like to me, it was the greatest moment as an elected official to see that happen. Like my dream just came true.
Sure.
And I got to see it happen.